morning. Welcome to our Bible study for Sunday, July 12th, 2020. This Sunday, we are going to study Deuteronomy, the whole thing. We began this Bible study back in January with the idea that we will read through the whole Bible, beginning to end, looking at the arc of the story, seeing how it all fits together and learning our family history. Some of the books will be in for several weeks because there's a lot in there. And other books, even though there is a lot in, we will go through in a week or maybe two, not because there's not necessarily a lot in there. They just don't advance the story very much. So Deuteronomy is one of those. There's a lot in there, but it will cover the parts where it advances the story. I would like to come back at some point and take a much deeper dive because there is a lot of stuff in there. So let's begin with prayer. Gracious Lord, please be with us today. Help us to feel your presence while we're in our study and throughout the day. Open our eyes and our ears to your word and to your work. Help us to see it all around us every day. Help us to see Christ's face in the faces of those all around us and to act like we do. Help us to be your faithful disciples today and every day. Amen. Deuteronomy it's a small book. It's about 40 pages long, and it's really stuffed. It's very dense. What's it stuffed with, you ask? Again, there's a lot of instructions. There's a lot of rules, and some other stuff too. Deuteronomy comes right at the end of the Israelites' time in the desert. They've been there for 40 years, and they are quite literally across the river from the Promised Land. They are on the banks of the Jordan River looking across at Jericho. Moses knows he's at the end of his life. He's 120 years old, which is really old. And the last 40 years has been very, very busy for him. So this book is him tidying things up, getting ready for him to die, and getting the Israelites ready to go on ahead into the Promised Land. As we have learned again and again, God wants Moses to be very thorough in his instruction giving to the Israelites, and he is. Hence, lots of rules and instructions. This time, however, they're presented in a series of speeches or sermons, or maybe even you might think of them as lectures, but it's broken up like that. And because he knows he's not going to be leading them, he's determined to get everything in. It begins with a history, not at the very beginning, but once the Lord has led them from Mount Sinai to the hill country of the Amorites, that place where they camped, and they sent a spy from each tribe into Canaan to get the lay of the land. And they did. They were there, and they looked around, and they saw that the land was good. It was really good. But it was also full of people, and full of cities, big, strong cities. By the time the people got back from their spying expedition, the rumor mills really started to pump. And by the time everybody got together that evening, they had filled the people's ears essentially with propaganda They had said that Canaan was full of these great big giants who, next to them, the Israelite people looked like grasshoppers. And it caused the people to say, we don't want to go to Canaan. We don't want to go. We would rather die here in the desert. We would rather be back in Egypt, where at least we had homes and food. Only Caleb, who was one of the spies, spoke up and said, we could do this. Yeah, they're big and there are strong cities, but we could do this. God will be with us. God told us this is our land. He'll take care of us. But they weren't having it. They were not having it. And it just outrages me. This is the same God that led them out of Egypt, parted the Red Sea, across they walked on dry land. They got through, seas came back together, Egyptian armies in the sea, swoosh, there they go away. They get into the desert. God makes sure they have food. He makes sure they have water. He makes sure they're victorious in battle. He is with them literally in camp, leading them as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. That God, that's the one that's going to now just leave them high and dry? I don't think so. And evidently God was every bit as outraged as I am, because in the first chapter, verses 34 through 38, Moses reminds the Israelites, and I quote, when the Lord heard what you said, he was angry and solemnly swore that not a man of this generation shall enter the good land that I, God, swore to your forefathers, except for Caleb and Joshua. And then they spent the next 38 years in the desert. So here they are on the shores of the Jordan River. They're looking across at Jericho, and Moses says to them, hear, O Israel, the decrees and the laws that I am about to teach you. Follow them so that you may live and go in and take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving you. Do not add to what I command and do not subtract from it, but keep the commands of the Lord your God that I give you. Now remember, Moses is telling this to a new generation. None of those folks that came through the waters of the Red Sea are still alive, except for Moses. So Moses is telling them that they need to recommit to this covenant that the Israelite people made at the base of Mount Sinai. Just let's go back for 1 second. So there they are, they're at the base of Mount Sinai. God is on the mountain. He spoke the words of the 10 Commandments out of fire to the people, scared the daylights out of them. And they said, you go talk to him. But they made a covenant. They promised God that they were going to follow his commands and be his people. And in turn, God would take care of them, that Israel would be his people, his set apart nation, his nation of priests. That didn't last very long. You know, Moses is up on the mountain with God for about 3.5 weeks, and they're making idols. So anyway, Moses is telling the new generation that they need to recommit to this covenant, and he's going to go through all of the stuff that it means to be in covenant with God. He tells them that in a little bit, but very shortly after reminding them of that stuff that they need to recommit, he tells them again, don't make idols. I think he remembers that it didn't take him very long to forget the last time. So Um, Moses tells them in no uncertain terms that if they or any future generations become corrupt, if they stop abiding by the covenant, if they welsh on their deal, they will be exiled from Canaan. They will be scattered among the nations. But they will only be exiled from Canaan until they soften their hearts and love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and keep his commands. Then Moses tells the Israelite people very specifically what they have to do to be in right relationship with God, how they need to love God and other people, and what exactly that means. And it comes down to all the stuff that we've been talking about for the last several weeks. Big, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love the Lord your God. Have no other gods before him. Do not make idols. Do not use his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath holy. And then there are the ones about loving people. Do not steal. Do not murder. Do not lie. Do not bear false. Oh, I said that. Do not covet. Do not break your marriage. Forgetting something. But it's the Ten Commandments. There is one piece in there that I had never read before. I'd never actually, it hadn't sunk into my head before. At one point, Moses tells the people that one of the ways to worship God and to show their respect for God is to tithe, to give the first 10% of their harvest, of the best of their animals, 10% of their wealth. Every year, that's what you do. That's how you show your respect. We still do it. We tithe in church, and the church then does God's work out in the community. Well, something I hadn't heard before, it's there, I just didn't stick in my head, is that every third year, the people of God are to tithe 1/10 of their wealth to people in need. And that is a way to show love and respect, another way to worship God. Okay, so Moses goes on to tell them what the blessings will be if they obey and what the curses will be if they don't. That he also goes on to tell them that they will be disloyal, that they will become corrupt, that they will be scattered among the nations. But when all these blessings and curses that I have set before you come upon you and you take them to heart, wherever the Lord disperses you, when you and your children return to the Lord and obey him with all your heart and with all your soul, according to everything I command you today, then the Lord will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you. Moses then tells the people again that he will not be leading them into Canaan, that the Lord will go ahead of them with Joshua leading them and will, in so many words, give them Canaan. God then tells Moses that his death is near. Moses has written down all the commandments, all the laws and decrees, and the 10 Commandments are in the Ark of the Covenant, back in the Holy of Holies. God goes as a pillar of cloud to the tent of meeting. Moses and Joshua go there too. God confirms for Joseph everything that Moses has said, and God tells Joshua to be of good courage, and that God would be with him as God and Joshua lead the people into Canaan. Moses makes sure to tell the Levites to take the book of law, all of the stuff that's in Deuteronomy and all the stuff that they've been talking about before and put it right next to the Ark of the Covenant. They need to know these laws. They need to know the big laws and the big commandments, the 10 commandments, and then this is how you do it. These are more specific laws. These are more how to live in community and how to worship and so on and so forth. So that when they do become corrupt, when they are dispersed among the nations, they will understand why God has turned his face from them, because they are doing the stuff that's there. Moses then sings the song of his life, the Moses song, which reminds me very much of the song that I understand Native Americans sing at the end of their life. It tells the story of the Israelite people, and it tells about their stubbornness and their willfulness and their sinfulness and the consequences of those things. And it also reiterates again and again and again God's unwavering love, grace, faithfulness, and forgiveness. And God tells Moses to sing this song and to teach it to the people so that they'll know their history. So then Moses goes up onto Mount Nebo to be with God one more time. And they never see him again. It is an awesome story. It is a beautiful story. And I encourage you to go back and read Deuteronomy. It's worth reading. I warn you, it's dense. But anyway, here we are. We're at the edge of the Jordan River. We're ready to go across. And that's where we'll pick up next week. I hope you had a great week. I hope you have a great week coming up. I hope you are taking good care of yourselves and taking good care of your families. Continue to be well and stay safe. I look forward to seeing you, or in some cases, meeting you, hopefully pretty soon. In the meantime, take care.